Let's jump to the story from PinkNews.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we're going to see a lot of people decide they don't want to be associated with this group anymore. In what I would only describe as a hilarious self-own.
Oh my.
PinkNews says anti-LGBTQ groomer slur banned on Reddit in bid to tackle hate speech. Your move, Twitter. Okay, let me just clarify. Reddit did not ban the term groomer, but the fact that that's what they think is happening and that the word groomer itself is just describing the LGBTQ community is a ridiculous and hilarious self-own. They're calling themselves groomers when that's not what's being implied. And the evidence for this is that there's also a smear against a group called Gays Against Groomers. And it is LGBTQ people who are like, we don't like what these groomers are doing in our name.
That sounds good.
It's great.
That sounds very good.
Because groomer as a word refers to people who are grooming kids.
That's bad.
Well, PinkNews is trying to conflate the entirety of the LGBTQ community with the groomers, and it's likely because, in my opinion, there's been an attempt among pedos to infiltrate and get the community to defend them, and it's starting to work. They tried LGBTP, that didn't work.
Ooh.
They tried MAP, didn't work. Groomer, all of a sudden, now these activists are coming out and defending groomers, saying, hey, stop making fun of us. And it's like, us?
What?
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
There
the
you go.
love is love thing is not real. There's erotic love, and then there's storg, which is love of family. There's lots of different kinds of
And
love.
there's pedophilia, which is not about loving, but abusing children.
That's totally a different type of love, according to the Greeks, than like your love of family.
Okay, so I'm trying to logically figure out why the left would do this. The only thing I can think of is it because there are bad faith people who are homophobic, who are just starting to use the word groomer as sort of a new way just to call all gay people groomers. And again, I still disagree. I'm just trying to figure out, why would you do this? Why would you want to associate yourself with the term groomer?
Generally, no. There are probably some people who have.
Yes.
But in terms of what groomer actually refers to, it's like libs of TikTok pointing out teachers are going after kids.
Right.
They're referring to people secretly meeting with children and telling these things. Well, there may be some people who are saying that's a groomer and it's just a general blanket idea, but the idea behind groomer is specific to the individual targeting a child.
This is exactly...
So let me just say, the rule that Reddit implemented was on one subreddit, and it said, don't refer to all gay people as groomers. That was the actual rule. PinkNews then comes out and says they've completely banned the word because it's a slur against gay people, and it's like,
well, not all groomers are evil. Like, for instance, this is a very neutral take, the groom. When people get married, the man is now the groom. He's being groomed by the woman to be a father.
We're not talking about semantics.
Parents groom their children to become young adults, to become good people. Good parents do.
But that's
now,
not...
when people are grooming them to do evil, that's the kind of grooming that you got to watch out for.
Ian is hashtag not all groomers.
Not all groomers.
Except groomer specifically is a verb that refers to a specific concept.
In this lexicon, I understand, yeah.
Right, so we don't need to describe the differences between words. Like if I said, would you go for a run? I'm not talking about putting a floppy disk in a computer. I'm talking about going and exercising, and no one needs to understand that argument.
Yep. I did try to run with Ian earlier.
But keep it in mind as the conversation evolves. Keep that little tidbit in the back of your mind.
Well, and this is exactly what was killing me about the kid surgery when it comes to trans rights, where this is the same thing. It's like, guys, is this the hill we want to die on? Because now people on the right are just seeing LGBT groups defending the word groomer, and they're going to go, all right, I don't want to be associated with that.
I want you to imagine this. There's a skeevy, creepy looking dude standing outside of a playground, looking at children and licking his lips.
Yep.
And you go, hey, you get out of here, you pedo. And then a bunch of gay people walk over and stand next to him and go, stop making fun of us.
Right.
And you go, wait, what?
All right.
What?
What? Well, that's what PinkNews just did. And it's like, my concern was with that guy targeting the kids,
but
not
now,
y'all.
Yeah, I don't like the amalgamation of groups. Like, a pedophilia is nothing to do with bisexuality, gay, transgender.
Right.
Transgenderism has nothing to do with gay at all. You can be a straight person that transitions your gender.
Yep.
You don't have to be. So this weird grouping together, maybe it's out of like a survival instinct or something, and I think it's doing more damage to the movement.
100%, dude. And how many gay people were probably livid when they saw
Probably
this.
a lot.
That's why there's a group called Gays Against Groomers.
Yeah, and one also they probably don't want to speak out because it's like, oh, now am I going to get in trouble for speaking out against groomers?
Well, they don't even want to get involved.
Right.
It's not
Well,
worth it.
no, like they're starting an organization. Look, Gays Against Groomers. And the funny thing is, they talk about how there's like the LGB movement. Have you guys heard of this?
Right. Yeah.
Because so there are people, particularly in I think the UK, and they say, what does a woman liking a woman, a man liking a man, or a man or a woman liking both have to do with being gender dysphoric?
Love it.
So that's why there's been this LGB movement that said that's totally different from what we do.
Right.
Get this: a transgender person who is a trans lesbian, that means they're biologically male, transition to be a woman, and then marry a woman, they do not need any special laws made for them.
Right.
They could always, in 1990, those people could have gotten married. Gay people, lesbians, and bisexual people had to actually get a legal right. That's why I understand fighting for, the gay marriage. TQIA-S2P plus or whatever, don't. Now, in the instance a trans person was biologically male and wanted to marry a man because they were trans straight, they call it, then you needed a special law, but that's only half, right? Or I shouldn't say half, but that's not the entirety of the trans community, in which case LGB, all 100% of those people needed provisions to change in government so they could get married. The trans community, not completely. Queer community, not completely. Intersex, nothing at all. I mean, the issue there is there's a difference, and the cult is trying to amalgamate as many groups as possible. Like, you ever see the image of the Muslim woman with the rainbow hijab or whatever, with like a rainbow flag behind her, and I'm like, that's strange. Or there was a I don't know if it was the L Word or some show. They had a lesbian Muslim woman, and it created huge outrage in the Muslim community around the world because they were like, this is not acceptable. They're trying to take as many different groups and put them under one umbrella, even when they don't like each other. So I think it was in Birmingham in the UK, Muslims came out to protest the schools doing an LGBT curriculum, and they were calling the teachers like groomers and pedos and stuff, and saying, we don't want our kids learning this. Our kids are 7 years old. They're too young for this. And then this guy goes, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you. And they were like, we don't like you. It's very strange when they try and just lump everything together. Should we put an M in there? LGBTMQ? Muslims? They put black people in the flag.
Black and brown people.
I remember when I was super woke, and there'd be a story like that where it was like, Muslims are fighting with gay people, and I was like, I don't know whose side to take without getting in trouble.
Right?
This is terrible.
What do I do?
So
No,
then
you
what do I do?
Yeah.
You make fun of yourself.
That's probably
That's what comedians do.
I'm looking forward to seeing the MCA flag, the Muslim Christian atheist flag.
Yeah.
No,
Let's
it's the
go.
American Abrahamic Alliance,
All
AAA.
inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on. At some point, you got to represent yourself.
Yeah.
Forget about what color it is, because you're just a human, and be your best and speak your mind.
There you go.
There are many gay people who don't like groomers.
That's right.
There should be.
So-
It should be controversial, you maniacs.
Well, so this is why I say, when someone comes out and says that groomer is a slur against all LGBTQ people, that's the pedo walking up to the, like, okay, let's do another analogy.
Yeah.
There's a creepy pedo guy looking at kids and licking his lips, and you say, hey, you pedo, you get away from those kids. And he walks over to a group of gay people and goes, that guy's making fun of us.
Right.
And then they go,
I
hey,
think
don't
that's
make fun of
intentional.
us.
I think an even more realistic analogy is like when a teacher starts talking to kids about things that aren't appropriate to discuss with kids.
And telling them to keep it a secret from their parents.
And then online, the woke folk defend it.
Well,
Yeah, it's messed up because they're
yeah.
using the badge of teacher to hide behind. Because if they did it at a public park, they'd get
Right.
arrested.
Especially if they
hands down.
Especially if they were licking their lips like all of Tim's pedos were in his analogies.
Yeah, I'm using like
Yo,
an
look,
extreme
extra
example
creepy.
of like
I mean, I
talking to a
didn't
kid
know
about
anything.
sex.
Let me just, if you go to one of these schools and take the book Genderqueer off the bookshelf and then walk up to a child, open it and read it, you're going to prison.
Yeah,
Isn't that weird?
guys, when we were growing up, maybe not you, Taylor, but we just
No, probably.
feared our teachers We didn't know anything. For all I knew, my English teacher lived in a shack.
That's right.
Like, they just had these haunting backstories where you would kind of hear rumors about, like, maybe where they lived. If you ever saw them out in public, you would just, like, run in the other direction. At no point would my, like, grizzled shop teacher be like, so I was laying next to a man. Like, he would have been arrested. He would have been arrested.
I don't know about you, but we didn't have a whole lot of respect for our teachers.
I feared them, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't scared of my teachers, but I didn't know much about their personal lives.
Right.
Right. That's true too. The only thing I knew about one teacher was that she got married because her name changed.
Oh.
Yeah, or like a teacher gets pregnant. Obviously, you're gonna know that.
happened too.
Yeah.
And we were like, "Hey, look, teacher's pregnant," and then she like stopped.
But she
showing up
wasn't
one
like, you
day.
want to know what position we did to
Yeah.
conceive?
No.
He's like, no,
Thank you.
no.
I'm 10 years old.
No,
I'm so little.
the 10-year-olds would go, "What's a position?
Yeah.
Just let me tell you."
Right.
No.
Yeah. Let me draw it.
And then don't tell your parents.
Creepy.
Dude.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Honestly, your opinion. Do you think that it is them being legit groomer, pedophile, blah blah blah, or do you think some of them are just trying to show how progressive they are and make like a thing about it?
No, some are groomers, and some are trying to indoctrinate kids because they know they don't have any of their own.
But also, regardless of the intention, it has the same effect.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. No. Neither answer was correct. They're both very bad, to
Right,
be
of
clear.
course, yeah.
I'm just curious about what you guys thought.
The left doesn't have kids; they have yours.
Yeah.
So because they're not having kids, they're sterilizing their kids and they're aborting their kids. This country is 20, 30 years away from being Christian conservative, hardcore. And it's really crazy because this country went from like, obviously you go way back in time, it's much more traditionalist for obvious reasons. It's back in time. But there was rampant racism, literal slavery, and a lot and dowries and things like that. And then over time, these things change, and there's progress and liberalism.
Obama's America.
Then there used to be, even with the First Amendment, you couldn't swear.
Yeah.
Even with the First Amendment, you couldn't say naughty words.
Yeah.
You couldn't wear certain clothes. And then we became very liberal, but then we became so liberal that liberals started killing their own children. Went too far in one direction, and that's going to result in a flow back in the other direction.
I don't think it's going to
get
get
more conservatives.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Christian though, because like what you're saying earlier, Jamie, about like you got excised from the left, but you didn't want to go full right. Like you just wouldn't let yourself. Like people aren't just going to say, okay, now I believe that cult. Like some people,
Well, they
might.
will.
Some people might,
Yeah.
but people in reality don't want to be in a cult.
Well, and what's so insidious about people on the left is they will and have said that I already have, that I'm already a right-wing grifter and whatever. And you guys have actually had conversations with me. And it's like, no, man, I just ask questions and I'm friends with people who don't share my exact worldview, and I'm pretty happy.
I'll see like some people, they're like getting disenfranchised with reality. And, when things can start to go haywire, like if you ever see The Stand, people become religious. But they're like, you know what? Yeah, now I believe in Jesus. And I'm like, wait, hold on, dude. This is like a lifelong exploration. You don't like get traumatized and then all of a sudden now you have a new religion.
So this is actually interesting. I pulled up the stats, and if you simplify the stats on is the United States becoming more Christian, they say no, because the country is 75% Christian now, but by 2050 it'll be 63%. And you look at it, it's actually a 20 million individual increase. So there will be a massive increase in the number of Christians in this country. However, there's going to be, they say, a larger increase in non-Christians. There's going to be about 90 or so million new population, of which only 20 million are Christians, reducing the overall percentage.
Yeah.
Where are those non-Christians coming from if non-Christians abort their kids? Well, we're seeing about 1 million people per year coming from illegal immigration or more. So I wonder if that's the issue. However, many people coming from Latin American countries are also Christian, so I don't understand their numbers.
My belief, and I don't know if it answers your question, is that religion's getting fun. Now that we can see cosmic microwave background radiation, we're like, whoa, is God actually quantifiable? Like, this is an opportunity for a generation to have a non-organized, just a kind of a belief structure about the essence of reality.
It is much more fun. It is much more fun to where the majority of people who have found God at a later age, it's not that I've met. It's not, oh, I went to jail, or oh, I was raised going to church. It's like, well, I did DMT, and you're like, yeah, there it is, man.
I think there's a lot of secular people too who have similar values as Christians in some ways without believing all the religious stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
our country's based on the tenets of Christianity, so it's through most people in the society.
Yeah, we talk about this quite a bit, that
Yeah.
the atheists of the 90s, 2000s, 2010s don't realize they completely operate on a Christian moral framework. But it's because they don't know anything about Christianity. They think that their morality is inherent to them because another issue, they've probably never traveled to other countries that don't have those moral frameworks.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of to what Taylor was saying, you know, I know for me, I think there are a lot of people in my generation, especially that, you know, you'd say I'm spiritual but not religious.
Right.
And so they saw what happened with the Catholic Church, or they were raised religious and they rebelled against their parents, but they never really let go of spirituality, or they never became a full-fledged atheist. And one of the things that I always sort of secretly admired about conservatives is when you looked at their words about what they stood for, it was like family values, God, hard work. And I was like, why are we against those things?
Sounds good, right?
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Like, why was the left, like, what were our words? It was like weed, gentrification. Like, it was just a bummer, right? And now I think that because the left has gone so far cuckoo bananas, I think that a lot of people, a lot of secular people who, you know, ran out of Richard Dawkins books to read, I think a lot of people are kind of craving that morality or those family values that are predominantly seen on the right or within some kind of religious framework.
I think that's normal too as you get older.
Yeah, is it because we're
To
closer to
value
death
stuff
and it's
like
like,
that
hey,
more.
just in case I'm wrong,
Well, you also you got
I'm
more
gonna start
perspective.
praying.
I think it, you know, Dennis Prager brought up a really great point. He says, what does he call it? Cut flower
Yeah, cut flower culture.
culture? Is that what he called
That's
it?
what he called it.
Yeah, so you have a flower, it's beautiful. You cut it from its roots and it stays beautiful, but eventually withers and dies. And that's what I think is happening. You had a period where, well, I mean, for a long time, this country was like 100% Christian, basically.
Right.
And that had a lot of bad things about it. You know, culturally, there was a lot of, is rigid, very rigid, like, you know, George Carlin getting arrested for swearing and stuff like that.
Right.
Then eventually you get some atheism, but it's still based on moral values from Christians. So they start saying things like, I don't think God's real, but I still agree the innocent should not be prosecuted for crimes they may not have committed unless it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And then you're like, where does that come from? And they don't know because they didn't study the Bible and they didn't learn about the history of Blackstone's formulation and where it came from and all this stuff. And then you realize, like, hey, wait a minute, China doesn't have that. Like in China, they just lock you up and they torture you if you oppose the government. Now that's communism. You know, that's not the traditional Chinese values. But the point is, those people are not raised with the same moral values we have. Interesting. Now we're starting to see what happens when the atheist children of parents who don't know where their values come from raise children, and they don't know how to bring those values to those kids, and those kids are, you know, the current millennial generation.
Well, and my parents did it right, man, where I wasn't raised religious. My dad is a Jew, and my mom is Christian-ish, and we didn't go to church, and we didn't go to synagogue, but we celebrated Passover and Hanukkah and Christmas, and, you know, they would always tell us about our relatives and our ancestors and all this stuff, but they believed in God and believed in the framework of just being a good person. And so they didn't raise us anti-religious. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't go to church. We didn't get burnt out on that. But it was still, hey, be a good person. We're not alone. We don't know, but we're not alone. And I think that's why I never could go that, like, full throttle, hateful atheist who just spends all day on, you know, Reddit calling religious people dumb. I think that's why I still always sought out something, because you don't know. You can't be, if you say you're an atheist, you're just as fundamentalist. Like, even when I thought I was an atheist, I called myself agnostic because I don't know. If I called myself an atheist and God came crashing down to the ceiling and was like, I'm real, I wouldn't be like, no, I've read Sam Harris. I'd be like, all right, man, I guess I was wrong, which makes me agnostic.
What's funny is looking at these polls about the future of Christianity, I wonder how they make the determination, because you can't predict culture. If you could, make your investments now, you'll be rich. I think they underestimate the cultural shift that DMT particularly will bring upon atheists.
Yeah, it's possible
For real,
that
dude.
Christianity is going to reform into like, because the idea of Christ is like the anointed one, and Jesus just happened to be the Christ of that time. He was anointed by God, but we can all be anointed by God. I believe that anyway, that it's flowing through us all.
Yeah. Me too. Well, I mean, I made that DMT thing as kind of a joke, but am I allowed to talk about me doing drugs on YouTube?
Hell yeah.
Well, we talk about
Yeah.
DMT all the
Mention
time. We
it,
just
yeah.
don't advocate.
You're not supposed
for
to
people
do drugs
Yeah,
on YouTube.
I had a terrible experience where I found God.
There you go.
During COVID or right before lockdown, my cat died and my girlfriend left in the same week. And it was awful. And I was infinitely more upset about the cat than the girl because he was the best. Oh, and she would like she would see me crying and be like, "Don't worry, we'll still be friends." And I was like, "Oh, I'm crying about the cat." But I'd be like, "Yeah,
okay.
we'll still be
Go
friends."
away.
And so over Valentine's Day, it was my first Valentine's Day I'd ever spent alone. I was like, I'm going to take mushrooms for the first time since high school. And everyone was like, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. And
Yeah,
they're
good
like,
timing.
you're going to be alone on Valentine's Day. And guess what? I wasn't alone. I was with everyone and God. And I, for the longest time, I considered myself agnostic. But people have these experiences. People on their deathbed, again, when they are given by medical professionals, there are doctors who do this. People on their deathbed who are so scared of death, they are with a doctor, with a professional, given psilocybin, and they no longer fear death. They do see something. It does open something up in you.
What if, like, right before people died, we just blasted them with DMT?
Would be the best.
Like when you
Yes.
they say when
Yes.
you die,
Yes.
your brain releases DMT, right? Like a ton of it. What if they were just like tenfold, baby, intravenous drip?
I'm putting that in my will. Let's go.
Yeah, we're all putting that in our
Yeah,
wills.
let's go.
Yo, I think you should.
I want that in my employment contract here.
I think when you're like certifiably like about to die, you should be able to just like
Yeah, right to choose, I think. Is that what they call?
Well,
Yeah.
look, they're right to try.
Right to
Yeah.
try.
Is like if you're dying, you can try a drug. I'm saying no. Like if the doctor's like, you got an hour left, you should be able to be like, I can have any drug I want. 'Cause I'm
Yeah,
dead.
it's like a prisoner's last meal before execution. They just give you a list, which is like acid, psilocybin, DMT, mescaline. It's like, yeah, man.
And you decide like weeks before, like, hey, if the moment comes,
Yeah.
and then I turn the light green by like,
Yeah.
whatever I'm able to do.
You could do
yeah.
it like an ice cream shop. You could be like, "Can I do half DMT, half psilocybin?" They could be like, "Yeah, buddy,
Yeah,
it's
let's
your
see what happens.
it's your special day."
It's your party. Let's go.
And they monitor your heart rate.
Yep.
Monitor your brain waves or whatever, and they're like, well. Someone's like, give me the full blast of all of of acid, DMT, and psilocybin.
Give me the Joe Rogan treatment.
There
Is
you
what
go.
they call that.
broken,
I saw
Rogan's broken punch.
Alexandria Cortez tweeted out last week that she had somehow included in the NDAA something about legalizing psilocybin and MDMA for people to like patients and stuff.
Yeah.
And I got mixed
Wait, did she
feelings.
really do that?
Yeah, it's on Twitter at least last week, I think.
That is going to
very
become
happy.
more and more popular. I mean, look, man, these politicians, the second they see money is behind it, Tim Ferriss, a lot of guys like that in sort of like the tech self-help podcast world have done a great job about talking about psilocybin for PTSD, for depression, for all this stuff. And there's a new, Michael Pollan has been great. There's a new documentary on Netflix that comes out this month all about the medicinal uses of psilocybin by Michael Pollan, who his book is called, I think it was the #1 bestseller, How to Change Your Mind, was his book all about psychedelics. And there is going to be a real movement for once politicians see that there is money behind it. We saw it with weed legalization. Suddenly they're all going to be little Jerry Garcias, and they're all going to be like, yeah, man, like I'm totally for it.
Yeah, I think that a fear of psychedelics is that it can make people so radical that they'll flip the system on its head.
That I wonder
But the
about.
system is breaking so hard right now that we need to shake it, and people will see there is money involved. We can save our economy with creativity.
I got an idea for like a short film.
Yeah.
Where it's like a dude who does DMT, and they say you blast off, right? You like perceive another dimension or something.
Yeah.
But you're still tethered to your body, so you like come out of your body and you're to the dimension, but then you snap back once it wears off, right? But then eventually, when he's blasting off, he's like, something happens, an earthquake or whatever, and like his house falls down and he dies. separating himself from his body, and now he's trapped in like the machine elf world because there's no way to go back. Because normally when you die, like your body is there and it doesn't go there, but now you're here and then you're trapped. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Come hang out live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Super chat. We'll even answer some of your questions. If you want to check out the After Hours Censored Show, go to timcast.com and become a member. We put those up Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. They're very funny, not very family friendly. We'll love to see you there. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.